Homeostasis. Animals have really two environments, an external environment and internal environment in which the tissues of the body live. The external environment consists of varying conditions of environment. The internal environment is formed by circulating organic liquid called lymph or plasma, which surrounds and bodies all the tissues. Homeostasis is tendency of an organism or cell to regulate its internal conditions such as chemical composition of its body fluids so as to maintain health and functioning regardless of outside conditions. The organism still maintains homeostasis by monitoring its internal conditions and responding appropriately when these conditions deviate from their normal state. Mechanism of homeostasis. Homeostasis mechanism operates just like physical control system, having three components: receptors, control centers, and effectors. Receptor sensor detects changes in variable and feeds that information back to control center integrator. Integrates puts together data from sensor and stores set point data. Effector is the mechanism heating coil in this example that has an effect on variable. In common lab incubator, if temperature is decreased from set point, the thermometer receptor detects the change in temperature and signals the thermostat control center, which in turn activates the heating coil effector. Similarly, if temperature is increased from the set point, again thermometer detects the change and signals the thermostat to switch up heating. Likewise, in human body, thermoreceptors are involved in the detection of temperature change. Hypothalamus in forebrain is body thermostat. Stimulated once, hypothalamus acts on effectors for cooling, for example, sweat glands, on heating muscles. The body to reverse the change to the set point. After receiving the signal, a change occurs to correct deviation either by depressing it with negative feedback or enhancing it with positive feedback. Negative feedback. Negative feedback is mainly how homeostasis is maintained. This feedback results in reversal of the direction of change. Negative feedback tends to stabilize a system, correcting deviation from the normal state. An example, negative feedback mechanism is applied to control water content in the body. ADH makes collecting tubules and distal convoluted tubules of nephrons permeable to water, thus more water is absorbed and maximum amount of water is retained in the body. The blood water content rises which is sensed by hypothalamus, so ADH secretion slows down. Positive feedback. In contrast to negative feedback, positive feedback involves a change in some variable that triggers mechanism that amplify rather than reverse the change during childbirth. For instance, the pressure of the baby head against sensor near the opening of the uterus stimulates uterine contraction which cause greater pressure against the uterine opening, highlighting the contraction which causes still greater pressure. Positive feedback brings childbirth to completion, a very different sort of process from maintaining a physiological steady state. Harmful positive feedback. Although positive feedback is needed with homeostasis, it is also can be harmful at times. When you have a high fever, it causes metabolic change that can push the fever higher and higher. In rare cases, the body temperature reaches 113 degrees Fahrenheit and the cellular proteins stop working and the metabolism stops, resulting in death. If a person breathes air that has very high carbon dioxide content. This produces a high concentration of carbon dioxide in blood. This is sensed by carbon dioxide receptor, which cause breathing rate to increase. So the person breathes faster, taking a more carbon dioxide, will stimulate the receptor even more, so they breathe faster and faster. A type of homeostasis in which water and ions electrolytes concentration is maintained in the cells and in the intercellular fluid is called osmoregulation. Balance of water and electrolytes is very critical to the health of animals. The mechanism involved in regulating water and electrolytes balance vary widely among the animal groups as different habitats present different challenges. Water and solutes relation to the cells. Animal body is composed of 70% of water. However, the quantity of water may vary from cell to cell. Water has number of physiological properties that are of significance to the life. It is also the medium in which biochemical reactions occurs. So it is very important to have a proper balance of water in the body. Osmoregulation involves the movement of water by osmosis. Therefore, a proper balance of solutes is also important in order to maintain water movement. Animals may be either osmoregulator or osmoconformers with respect to their osmoregulatory characteristics. Osmoregulators. Some animals, like all land animals and most marine vertebrates, have body fluids whose solute concentration is different from that of external environment. Therefore, they must use energy in controlling water loss or gain to keep the balance of water and solutes. Such animals are called osmoregulators. Whether an animal inhabits land, freshwater, or saltwater, its cells cannot survive without water. Osmoconformers. Some aquatic animals that live in the sea have the body fluids with a solute concentration equal to that of external environment. Such animals do not undergo net gain or loss of water because equal amount of water move back and forth between two solutions with equal solute concentration. The animal body fluids are kept isotonic. Such animals are called osmoconformers. Freshwater animals. Almost all of the freshwater animals are osmoregulators. These animals generally hypertonic to their outer environment. These animals face the problem of swelling up by the passive movement of water into their bodies from the surrounding environment. Therefore, these animals have no need to drink water. They also face the continual loss of body salt to the surrounding freshwater environment, which has low salt concentration. These animals deal with these problems by producing large volume of diluted urine. Their kidney reabsorb the salt that are required. Salts are also obtained from the food they eat. These animals also actually transport salts from the external dilute medium with the help of special salt cells called ionocytes. Ionocytes are found in the amphibian skins and gills of fishes. Marine animals. As described earlier, that marine environment has both osmoconformers and osmoregulators. Osmoregulatory adaptations of these animals are very different from each other. Cartilaginous species such as sharks, rays, and skates, and some cyclostomes like maxine hagfishes have plasma that is approximately isotonic to seawater. On the other hand, most of marine teleost bony fishes are hypotonic to seawater. So these fishes have tendency to lose water to the environment, especially across the gill's epithelium. They also have problem of excess of salts in body due to drinking of seawater in order to replace the water loss. These fishes usually drink large amount of water. Unlike freshwater fishes, among the excess salts NaCl and some amount of K potassium are removed across the gill's epithelium, while the valent ions like magnesium, calcium are excreted by the kidney. Some fishes also have special salt secreting glands in the wall of rectum called rectal gland that remove salts into the digestive tract. which are then eliminated from the body during digestion. Terrestrial animals. In terrestrial animals, evaporation of water leads to the dehydration, which is the major problem faced by these animals. The successful groups of land animals are arthropods. Among the invertebrates and reptiles, birds, and mammals, among the vertebrates, the presence of chitinous exoskeleton in arthropods, indeed keratinized skin in vertebrates, are adaptation to reduce water loss by their bodies. Desert mammals are very much resistant in this regard. They can tolerate against strong degree of dehydration by special metabolic and behavioral adaptation. This characteristic is called anhydrobiosis. Actually, these animals feed upon seeds of desert plants in which large amount of carbohydrate is stored. During the breakdown of these compounds, water is produced as byproduct. This is utilized by these animals. Best example of such animals is kangaroo, rat. Desert animals avoid daytime heat and emerge at night. 90% of water that they use is metabolic water derived from cellular oxidation. Excretion. Metabolism of food and other chemicals in body produces large amount of toxic byproducts. Water and carbon dioxide are produced in metabolism of all sugar, lipids, and even proteins. The most troublesome is the nitrogen containing waste from the metabolism of proteins and nucleic acids. Nitrogen is removed from these nutrients when they are broken down for energy or when they are converted to carbohydrates or fats. The primary nitrogenous waste product is ammonia, a small and very toxic molecule. Some animals excrete their ammonia directly, others first convert it to less toxic waste such as urea or uric acid and then excrete it. The form of nitrogenous waste an animal excretes depend on its habitat. Ammonia. Ammonia is highly toxic and highly soluble in water. 1 gram of nitrogen in the form of ammonia requires 500 ml of water to dissolve it to non-toxic level. If the organism has sufficient source of water, ammonia can simply be excreted out. This is the course taken by many aquatic organisms, particularly those in freshwater. Animals which excrete ammonia as their major nitrogenous waste product are called ammonotelic. For example, most fishes, protozoans, sponges, cylindrids, echinoderms. Urea. Organisms with less fresh water will be available, such as submarine organisms, and our terrestrial organisms could not afford to waste water. They will often invest some energy to convert the ammonia into urea, which is 100,000 times less toxic than ammonia. 1 gram of nitrogen in the form of urea requires 50 ml of water to dilute it to non-toxic level. Animals which excrete urea as their major nitrogenous waste product are called ureotelic. Uric acid. Uric acid is a purine, even less toxic than urea, and it precipitates from solution. 1 gram of nitrogen in the form of uric acid requires just 1 milliliter of water for its secretion. It has evolved in two groups with major water loss problem: terrestrial invertebrates and egg-laying vertebrates. These animals are called uricotelic. Excretory system of man consists of all the organs that aid the body in removing waste products. Skin, lungs, liver, kidneys work to dispose of metabolic wastes. Kidneys. The kidneys are dark red, slightly flattened, bean-shaped organs about 12 centimeters long, 6 centimeters wide, 4 centimeters thick, each weighing about 150 grams. They are placed against the back wall of the abdominal cavity, just below the diaphragm, one on either side of the vertebral column, between the last thoracic vertebra and the third lumbar vertebra. The upper part of the kidney are partially protected by the 11th and 12th ribs. Their position is slightly asymmetrical, the right kidney being a little lower than the left one because of a lower lobe above it. The kidney has a bean-shaped structure. The outer surface is convex and the inner surface is concave. The inner surface has a deep notch called hilus. The renal artery and nerves enter the kidney, and the renal vein and ureter leave the kidney through hilus. The kidney is surrounded by tough membrane, the renal peritoneum. Transverse section of kidney shows two distinct regions, an outer cortex and an inner medulla. This is the structure of kidney. This is internal structure. This is renal artery, cortex, pyramids, hilum, renal artery, renal vein, and this is external structure of kidney. Inner medulla. The cortex contains renal corpuscles and convoluted tubules of nephrons. The medulla contains conical structures called pyramids. All the pyramids project into the pelvis. The pelvis leads into the ureter. Ureters. Ureters are about 28 centimeters long. They are pair of narrow, muscular, tubular structures which arise from the hilus of the kidney, run backward along the dorsal body wall, and open on the dorsal wall of the urinary bladder. These pass urine from the kidneys to the urinary bladder. Urinary bladder, it is a pear-shaped sac situated in the pelvic region of the abdominal cavity. It is thick, muscular, distensible wall that allows its expansion. It can store about zero point 0.5 to 1 liter of urine. It receives the ureter through the lower part of its back wall. The lower part or neck of the bladder is guarded by two rings of muscle fibers called sphincters. Both the sphincters must relax to let urine pass out from the bladder. The act of emptying the bladder is called micturition. Urethra. The urethra starts from the neck of the urinary bladder and leads to the exterior. In females, it is about 2 to 3 centimeters long and carries only urine. It opens by urethral orifice or urinary aperture in the vulva in front of the vaginal aperture. In male, urethra is about 20 centimeters long and carries urine as well as the spermatic fluid. It passes through the penis and opens out of the tip of the penis by urinogenital aperture. Nephron. The basic unit of structure and function of kidney is the nephron. Each human kidney contains about 1 million nephrons. Each nephron is composed of renal corpuscle and renal tubule. Structure of nephron. Loop of Henle collecting duct. Distal convoluted tubule. Vestibular peritubular capillaries, proximal convoluted tubule, renal corpuscle, efferent arteriole, efferent tubules, vasa recta. collecting duct. Renal corpuscle. Renal corpuscle is composed of glomerulus and Bowman capsule. It is the initial filtering component of the nephron. The glomerulus is a capillary tube that receives its blood supply from an afferent arteriole of the renal circulation. Bowman capsule is a cup-shaped structure that encloses glomerulus. The cells of Bowman capsule in the kidney that wrap around the capillaries of the glomerulus are called podocytes. The folds in capillary endothelium and the gaps in between podocytes are quite large and make it easy for any substance dissolved in the blood plasma to get through from the blood into the capsule. However, basement membrane of blood capillaries stop large protein molecules from getting through. Renal tubule. The components of the renal tubule are proximal convoluted tubule, it is the portion of the duct system of the nephron, the kidney which leads from Bowman capsule to the loop of Henle, it is longest part of the nephron. The proximal tubule is lined by epithelial cells having brush border composed of microvilli. It increases surface area for reabsorption. Loop of Henle. It is long U-shaped tube of the nephron. The loop of Henle is more prominent in juxtamedullary nephrons where it descends down to the tips of pyramids and medulla. It is an important part of whole system as it allows the kidney to filter out salt and maintain the correct balance of water in the body. Distal convoluted tubule. The distal convoluted tubule is the most distal portion of the nephron collecting ducts. Each distal convoluted tubule leads to a system of collecting ducts, the first segment of which is collecting tubule. The collecting duct system begins in the renal cortex and extends deep into the medulla. Finally, it delivers urine to renal pelvis. Type of nephron. Two general classes of nephrons are cortical nephrons and juxtamedullary nephrons, both of which are classified according to the location. Cortical nephrons are found in the cortex. They have their renal corpuscle and the superficial renal cortex and have relatively short loops of Henle. 70 to 80% nephrons in human kidney are cortical. Under normal condition of water availability, the cortical nephron deals with the control of blood volume. Juxtamedullary nephrons have their renal corpuscle close to the junction of the cortex and medulla. They have long loop of Henle which extends deep into the medulla. The type of nephron is relatively rare and only comprise 20 to 30% of nephron in the human kidney. The greater gradients in the deep medulla make this type of nephron do more work than cortical nephrons. It is these nephrons which are responsible for development of the osmotic gradient in the renal medulla, which are used to concentrate urine. When water is in short supply, increased water retention occurs through juxtamedullary nephrons. Blood enters the kidney by the renal artery, which branches into finer and finer arteries before entering the glomerulus as an afferent arteriole. Filtered blood leaves the glomerulus by an efferent arteriole. It flows to form a network of peritubular capillaries around the proximal and distal convoluted tubules in the cortex region. The capillaries of vasa recta run antiparallel to the loops of Henle and the collecting ducts in the medulla. Excretory function of nephrons. The human's kidney perform a variety of functions. Nearly all are carried out by nephrons. The nephrons filter blood, remove wastes, which are passed out as urine. Formation of urine involves three key processes: ultrafiltration, selective reabsorption, and tubular secretion. Ultrafiltration. It is filtration under pressure. The diameter of efferent arteriole is half as compared to the efferent arteriole. It results in a high blood pressure in glomerulus. About 20% of the plasma is filtered into Bowman capsule. This filtered fluid is called glomerular filtrate. The filtrate has to cross endothelium of the glomerular capillaries, basement membrane of capillaries, and endothelium of Bowman capsule. It is chemical composition similar to that of blood plasma. It contains glucose, amino acids, vitamins, ions, nitrogenous wastes, some hormones, and water. Selective reabsorption. Ultrafiltration products about 125 ml of glomerular filtrate per minute in humans. This is equivalent to about 180 liters per day. In fact, of the 125 milliliter of filtrate produced per minute, 124 milliliter is reabsorbed on average. The reabsorption process in the nephron is very selective. The useful substances for the body are reabsorbed. Over 80% of the glomerular filtrate is reabsorbed in proximal convoluted tubules. Here, all of the glucose, amino acids, vitamins, hormones, and about 80% of the sodium chloride and water are reabsorbed. The function of loop of Henle is to conserve water. The wall of ascending limb is impermeable to water. However, sodium chloride, potassium, and other ions are absorbed actively here. The plasma becomes concentrated and fluid in the ascending limb becomes very dilute. The descending limb is highly permeable to water. The counter current multiplier system here result in the absorption of a lot of water and solutes. The distal convoluted tubules have osmoregulatory role and also control blood pH by secreting hydrogen ions. The collecting ducts are impermeable in nature. ADH opens water channels in collecting ducts to allow water to move out of the filtrate. It reduces the volume of urine, making it more concentrated. Tubular secretion. Tubular secretion is the transfer of material from peritubular capillaries to renal tubular lumen. Tubular secretion is caused mainly by active transport. Usually only a few substances are secreted. These substances are present in great excess, are unnatural poisons. Most important substances secreted by tubules are hydrogen ions, potassium ions, and organic ions, which are foreign to the body. Many drugs are eliminated by tubular secretion. Hydrogen ion secretion is important in acid-base balance of the body. Kidney is osmoregulatory organ. Control of water level. Body maintains the solute potential of blood at an approximately steady state. It is done by balancing water uptake from the diet with water lost in evaporation, sweating, addition, and urine. The solute potential is primarily achieved by the effect of antidiuretic hormone. ADH is secreted by the posterior lobe of pituitary gland. When body is deficient in water, hypothalamus detects a fall in blood solute potential and directs pituitary to release ADH. This hormone increases the permeability of the distal convoluted tubules and collecting ducts to water. More water is absorbed, reducing the volume of urine and making it more concentrated. When there is a high intake of water, ADH release is inhibited. Less water is absorbed and large volume of dilute urine is excreted. Control of blood sodium level. The maintenance of sodium level at a steady state is controlled by the steroid hormone aldosterone. It is secreted by adrenal cortex. Aldosterone activates sodium potassium pumps in the distal convoluted tubules. Sodium is pumped back to blood from filtrate actively. A urinary tract infection, or UTI, is an infection that can happen anywhere along the urinary tract. Urinary tract infections have different names depending on what part of urinary tract is infected. Almost all parts of urinary tract are affected by infection except ureters, which are rarely the site of infection. Following are the types of UTIs depending upon the site. Pyelonephritis, kidney infection, cystitis, cystitis, urethritis. Causes. The bacterial and fungal agents that cause most common type of UTIs include Escherichia coli, Staphylococcus cephrophyticus, Klebsiella, Enterococci bacteria, and Proteus mirabilis. Fungal organisms such as Candida albicans and also causes infection in mouth, digestive tract, and vagina. Urinary stones. Urinary stones are hard crystalline minerals materials that stick together, form small fibrils within the kidney or urinary tract. They may stay in kidney or travel out of the body through the urinary tract. Symptoms indications. Kidney stones often cause no pain while they are in the kidneys, but they can cause sudden severe pain as they travel from the kidneys to the bladder. Usually, pain appears at side, belly, or groin, and the color of urine becomes pinkish or reddish. These are common indications of kidney stones. Anyone may develop a kidney stone, but people with certain diseases and conditions or those who are taking certain medication are more susceptible to the stone development. Kidney stones form when there is decrease in urine volume and are an excess of stone forming substances in the urine. Kidney stones. Chemical nature of stone. The most common type of kidney stone contain calcium in combination with either oxalate or phosphate, 70% of all stones. Other chemical compounds that can form stones in the urinary tract include uric acid, 5 to 10% of all stones, and amino acid, histidine, 1 to 3% of all stones. Kidney stones can also result from infection in the urinary tract. These are known as stroid or infection stones, 20% of all stones causes. A number of different medical and environmental conditions can lead to an increased risk for developing kidney stones. Hypercalcemia. It is characterized by increased calcium level in the blood. That in turn causes hypercalciuria, high calcium in the urine. This condition may also arise in case of hyperparathyroidism, which is the oversecretion of parathormone from parathyroid gland. In this condition, too much calcium is absorbed from food and excreted into the urine, where it may form calcium phosphate or calcium oxalate stones. Hyperoxaluria. It is characterized by increased oxalate level in the urine. This condition is usually associated with poor use of tomato and green leafy vegetables in the diet. Hyperuricemia Uricemia. It is characterized by increased amount of uric acid in the blood that can lead to formation of uric acid stones. The level of uric acid may arise in gout. Genetic disorders are due to high intake of protein in the form of meat products. Treatment of urinary stones. Most stones under 0.5 centimeter can spontaneously pass from the kidney, but most stones greater than 1 centimeter cannot pass. If the stone must be removed, two commonly employed methods are percutaneous nephrolithotripsy and extracorporeal shock wave lithotripsy. The type of procedure depends on the type of stone and its size. Typically, small stones can be treated with ESWL, while larger stones require uses sound waves to break the stones. Epicinal procedure is more commonly used, and when ESWL is not successful, first a tube is inserted into the patient back into the kidney to create a tract. A scope is run through the tract to directly see the stone inside the kidney. Ultrasound equipment can then be inserted to break up the stone while watching the stone through the scope. The stone fragments can be grasped with special equipment and pulled through the tract out from the kidney. Before the advent of PCNL and ESWL, open surgical procedures were performed. This is less often necessary now, but sometimes still performed, especially for large, complicated staghorn branch stones. Renal failure or kidney failure. Renal failure or kidney failure is a medical condition in which the normal function of kidney filtration of toxins and waste products from the blood is gradually decreased. There are two forms of kidney failure. Acute kidney failure. Acute kidney failure occurs when kidneys suddenly become unable to filter wastes from the blood. All develops rapidly over a few hours or in few days. Acute kidney failure is most common in people who are already hospitalized, particularly in critically ill people who need intensive care. Acute kidney failure can be fatal and requires intensive treatment. However, acute kidney failure may be reversible in that case if patient otherwise in good health. Causes. Acute kidney failure can occur when something damages the kidney like blood clots or cholesterol deposits that blocks blood flow in the kidney. Similarly, certain chemotherapy drugs, antibiotics, and toxins such as alcohol, heavy metals, and cocaine can also cause kidney failure. Chronic renal failure. Chronic kidney failure, also called chronic kidney disease, is the gradual loss of kidney function. Chronic kidney failure may not become apparent until the kidney function is significantly impaired. Chronic kidney failure can progress to end stage renal disease, ESRD, and uremia, which is fatal without artificial filtering, dialysis, or a kidney transplant. Causes. Chronic renal failure develops gradually over time, often years to decades. The most common causes of chronic renal failure are diabetes and hypertension. Other causes include long-term daily use of anti-inflammatory drugs and other analgesic medications, pain relievers. Renal failure treatment. Treatment targets the underlying causes. Acute renal failure requires immediate and intensive medical care, often including dialysis, dietary modifications such as reduced sodium, protein, and fluid intake, and medication to control conditions such as diabetes and hypertension, allow many people to live with chronic renal failure for years to decades. When chronic renal failure progresses to ESRD, renal dialysis or kidney transplantation become necessary to sustain life. Renal dialysis procedures to filter toxins from the blood with kidneys are unable to perform this function is called renal dialysis. It can be short term or long term. Through in theory, renal dialysis could sustain life indefinitely. But in practice, most people experience a steady decline of overall health with long-term dialysis because artificial methods of cleansing toxins from the blood are not as effective, sufficient, or through as the natural processes the kidney perform. There are two general types of renal dialysis: peritoneal dialysis and homeodialysis. Peritoneal dialysis. Peritoneal dialysis makes use of natural membrane in the body. The peritoneum, which includes the abdominal cavity, in this process, two catheters are surgically inserted into the abdominal cavity that serve as the portal through which dialysis fluid enters the leaves the cavity. The molecules of dialysate are too large to pass through the peritoneum. So the solution remains contained in abdominal cavity. During circulation, when blood passes through the blood vessels, capillary network within the peritoneum, the dialysate attracts certain molecules to cross the membrane into the dialysate. A second catheter carries dialysate out of the abdominal cavity. There are two stages of peritoneal dialysis: or exchange draining of dialysate into out of the abdominal cavity, and the dwell, the time during which the dialysate remains in the abdominal cavity. The primary advantage of peritoneal dialysis is mobility. Most people are able to participate in regular activities including work, while peritoneal dialysis is underway and it can be performed at home. The success of peritoneal dialysis is variable than that of hemodialysis because the probability of the peritoneum varies among individuals. Some doctors believe peritoneal dialysis is less effective than hemodialysis at clearing toxins from the body. Hemodialysis. Hemodialysis removes waste and water by circulating blood outside the body through the external filter called dialyzer that contain a semi-permeable membrane. In this process, a catheter is inserted into blood vessel, usually in the arm. It routes the blood circulation externally through the machine that removes toxins. The cleansed blood then returns to the body through a second catheter. Many nephrologists feel that hemodialysis is more effective than peritoneal dialysis. However, hemodialysis entails significant risks like infection with hepatitis and other blood-borne conditions, injury to the blood vessels used to shuttle blood between the person, dialysis machine, and microscopic damage to the blood cells. Kidney transplantation. Replacement of disease, damaged or missing kidney with a donor kidney, also called renal transplant. Patients with end-stage renal failure are candidate for transplantation. A successful transplant frees the patient from dialysis and provides the kidney other metabolic functions. Donor recipient match. The donor kidney must match the recipient as closely as possible in three ways. First, the donor and the recipient must have the same blood type. Second, the donor and the recipient must match human leukocyte antigens, which are protein on the surface of leukocytes, white blood cells, as closely as possible. Every person is sex HLAs. The more HLAs that match between donor and recipient, the higher the likelihood that the recipient body will accept a donor kidney. Transplant surgeons like to see a match of 3 or more HLAs. Third, the donor blood must not initiate an antibody response with the recipient blood called a negative cross match. With the transplant team, test by mixing samples of blood from each in a test tube. Risk and complications. The risk of transplantation surgery include bleeding during the after the operation and prostato infection because the transplanted kidney is lower in the abdomen than the native kidney. It lacks the protection of the rib cage and is more vulnerable to traumatic injury. Most people recover fully from the surgery without complication through there is always the risk of organ rejection can be treated with various medications. Thermoregulation. The maintenance of body temperature by living organisms is termed as thermoregulation. The temperature influences the metabolic activity of animals in a number of ways. The main effect is on the rate of enzyme activity and the rate of movement of atoms and molecules. This directly affects the health and growth of animals. Temperature may also affect the geographical distribution of animals through its influence on plants as primary producers in the food chain. The effects of hyperthermia on organ system of animal may be profound. And if heat stress has been severe or prolonged, it may alter organ function and even kill the animal. Animals are classified into two groups on the basis of maintaining their body temperature. 5 kilotherms are cold-blooded animals are unable to maintain their body temperature within narrow limits using physiological mechanisms, for example, invertebrates, fishes, amphibians, and reptiles. Homeostasis, warm-blooded animals, are able to maintain fairly constant body temperature by using physiological mechanisms, for example, birds and mammals. Animals gain heat from two sources, the chemical reaction of ingested nutrients inside the body, the external environment, especially radiant energy from the sun. This is the main source of energy in the whole world. The extent to which different groups of animals are able to generate and conserve this heat is variable. Ectotherms rely on heat derived from the environment, then metabolic heat to raise their body temperature. For example, reptiles, amphibians, fishes, and invertebrates. Homeothermic animals are relatively independent of external sources of heat and rely on a high metabolic rate to generate heat, which is conserved. They are described as endothermic, for example, great white shark, flying insects, birds, and polar bear. Thermoregulation in humans. The ability to regulate body temperature is critical to sustain normal life This is the ultimate result of the body temperature stress too far from the normal. Core body temperature. The temperature of structures below the skin and subcutaneous tissue should be maintained between 36.4 and 37.3 degrees centigrade. Respiratory metabolism is major source of heat energy in human. This energy is mainly released by breakdown of carbohydrates and fats. The process of heat production of organism is called thermogenesis. This process is regulated by nervous system and hormones. There are two types of thermogenesis: shivering thermogenesis and non-shivering thermogenesis. Shivering thermogenesis involves repeated stimulation of voluntary muscles by motor neurons. It produces shivering response in muscles, which can increase heat production by up to 5 times the basal level. Non-shivering thermogenesis is the heat production caused by high metabolic state thyroxine. The thyroxine hormone increases metabolic rate, which result in heat production. Its effects are long-term. Adrenaline produces short-term increase in metabolic activity. Heat loss. Heat is lost from the general body surface by a number of processes like radiation, convection, and conduction. Radiation accounts for about 50% of total heat loss in humans. In vasodilation, certain of the arterioles beneath epidermis dilate. Consequently, more blood flows near the body surface, using heat through the epidermis. Evaporation is another mechanism of heat loss in humans. Water loss by evaporation takes place continuously through the skin even when a person is not sweating. Activation of sweat glands enhances this process. Heat loss also occurs by evaporation from the lungs. Partial control of heat loss is possible by regulating sweating. Heat conservation. There are a number of physiological and morphological adaptations in humans to conserve body heat. A fatty layer in the hypodermis of skin provides insulation and is very significant to conserve heat. Additional fat insulation of vital organs like kidneys and heart help that conservation in respective organs. Vasoconstriction is contraction of arterioles that supply the surface capillaries in the skin, reduces the volume of blood flowing near the surface and hence diminish heat losses. Human body is covered by hair. However, distribution of hair in human is much more restricted than in other mammals. Is the base of hair follicle a smooth muscle. The hair erector muscle contraction of this muscle pulls the hair upright. The hair stand on end air is trapped above the skin. It helps to conserve body heat. Rule of the hypothalamus. Humans have a well-developed temperature control system involving receptors and effectors and an extremely sensitive control center. The hypothalamus monitors the temperature of the blood flowing through it. This blood is at core temperature. Also, skin has hot and cold thermoreceptors. When suitably stimulated, they generate neuroimpulses, some of which pass to the hypothalamus and others to the sensory areas of the cortex. In most cases, the activity of both skin and hypothalamus receptors combine to control body temperature. This enables the body to make rapid and precise adjustment to maintain constant body temperature. A body temperature increases, the set point is hypothalamus. A set of responses is organized by hypothalamus. Vasodilation to increase the blood flow to the skin. It increases heat loss from the skin by radiation, convection, and conduction. Activation of sweat glands. Decreased metabolic activity. Cold temperature response is regulated by hypothalamus are vasoconstriction to decrease blood flow to the skin to reduce heat loss by radiation convection and conduction, inhibit sweating, in, inhibit painting, increase metabolism for shivering and release of thyroxine and adrenaline. Fever. An increase in core temperature is known as fever of or pyrexia. It happens in certain diseases like malaria and typhoid. Substances known as pyrogens, which may be toxins produced by pathogenic organisms or chemicals released by neutrophils, directly affect the hypothalamus and increase the temperature set point. The raised body temperature stimulates the defense responses of the body and helps the destruction of pathogens. Key points about homeostasis. Homeostasis is the tendency of an organism or cell to regulate its internal conditions, such as the chemical composition of its body fluids, so as to maintain health and functioning regardless of outside conditions. Homeostasis mechanism operates just like physical control system, having three component receptors and control center and effectors. Negative feedback results in a reversal of the direction of change. Negative feedback tend to stabilize a system, correcting deviations from the normal state. Positive feedback involves a change in some variable that triggers mechanisms that amplify rather than reverse the change. A type of homeostasis in which water and ions electrolytes concentration is maintained in the cells and in the intercellular fluid is called osmoregulation. Aquatic animals that live in the sea have the body fluid with absolute concentration equal to that of external environment so that animal body fluid are kept isotonic. Such animals are called osmoconformers. Desert mammals are very much resistant in this regard. They can tolerate against strong degree of dehydration by special metabolic and behavioral adaptation. This characteristic is called anhydrobiosis. The primary nitrogenous waste product is ammonia. Some animals excrete their ammonia directly, others first convert it to less toxic waste such as urea or uric acid and then excrete it. Animals which excrete ammonia as their major nitrogenous waste product are called aminotelic. Animals which excrete urea as their major nitrogenous waste product are called ureotelic. Animals which excrete uric acid as their major nitrogenous waste product are called uricotelics. Skin, lungs, liver, and kidneys work to dispose of metabolic wastes. The act of emptying the bladder is called micturition. Formation of urine involves three key processes: ultrafiltration, selective reabsorption, and tubular secretion. A urinary tract infection can happen anywhere along the urinary tract. Types of UTI depending upon the site includes pyelonephritis, kidney infection, cystitis, bladder infection, and urethritis, urethral infection. The most common type of kidney stone contain calcium in combination with either oxalate or phosphate 70% of all stones. Other chemical compounds that can form stones in the urinary tract include uric acid 5 to 10% of all stones and amino acid cysteine 1 to 3% of all stones. Two commonly employed methods for kidney stone removal are percutaneous nephrolithotripsy and extracorporeal shock wave lithotripsy. Renal failure or kidney failure is medical condition in which The normal function of kidney filtration of toxins and waste products from the blood are gradually decreased. Procedures of filter toxins from blood when the kidney are unable to perform this function is called renal dialysis. The maintenance of body temperature by living organisms is termed as thermoregulation. Poikilotherms are unable to maintain their body temperature within narrow limits using physiological mechanisms, for example, invertebrates, fishes, amphibians, and reptiles. Homeotherms are able to maintain a fairly constant body temperature by using physiological mechanisms, birds and mammals. The process of heat production in organisms is called thermogenesis.